Rain lashes the bunker roof like God's own warning. Yet inside, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and certainty. Lieutenant Marcus Adler grips his binoculars, eyes narrowed at the gray sea. He mutters that the Americans are too soft, too slow to fight a real war. PVT. Hans Keller chuckles nervously beside him, pretending to believe it. Then the first sound rolls in, a low, endless thunder. The earth begins to tremble. Otto Brandt's coffee cup slides off the table, shattering as the horizon erupts. Ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The sky splits open with fire and steel, the sea crawling with landing crafts like an iron plague. Adler's lips part, no words left to speak. Propaganda turns to dust in the space of a heartbeat. Every explosion writes a new truth across their faces. That weakness can hide in strength's silence, and arrogance can die before the first bullet even lands. Outside, the world is ending, and inside, belief burns slower. Rain, fire, conscience, all collide. And as the heavens roar, a single thought cuts through the noise. Who were we fighting? Them or our own lies? The first wave hits the shore like the ocean itself turned to men. From the bunker's slit, Adler watches through fogged glass as the beach erupts, bodies running, falling, standing again, swallowed by smoke. The air smells of salt and iron. Hans whispers a prayer, voice trembling like the window pane. Otto fires into the blur below, his jaw locked, his eyes empty. Every shot echoes hollow. The Americans keep coming, like a tide that forgets to turn back. Adler shouts orders, but his words vanish in the roar. A shell lands near the wire, throwing up mud and limbs alike. Somewhere in the chaos, an American flag flaps, half burnt, half beautiful. The weak enemy bleeds forward, unrelenting. Adler lowers his weapon for a heartbeat, staring as the storm keeps advancing. In that pause, he feels it, the lie cracking inside him, slow and deep. Down on the beach, Captain James Miller slams into the sand, coughing seawater. Around him, the world screams, men shouting, waves dragging bodies back into the tide. CPL. Danny Ruiz crawls beside him, helmet dented, eyes wide. We're still here, Miller gasps, gripping the wet sand like it's salvation. Bullets whip overhead, cutting through mist and rain. The machine guns above sing without rhythm, just hunger. Miller signals forward, hand shaking, and the men surge again. Through wire, through fear, through the belief that this is the day history stops lying. Each step costs another friend. Each breath burns like confession. When the bunker fire finally pauses, Miller looks up and sees faces in the smoke. Human. Terrified. Just like his. The realization hits him harder than shrapnel. There's no good side here, only survival wearing different flags. Inside the bunker, air turns to poison. Gun barrels glow red, smoke coiling like breath from hell. Otto's hands bleed from reloading too fast. Hans no longer hears orders, just the thumping of his own pulse. Adler wipes grime from his face and looks to the sea. It's all movement, endless. His voice cracks as he orders more ammo, but no one answers. Shells hit closer now. Concrete shakes. Dust rains down. The illusion is gone. This isn't a battle, it's a reckoning. When the ceiling bursts open with light, Adler sees the truth laid bare. 1,000 ships, 1,000,000 hearts, everyone beating against the lie he once believed. He lowers his rifle and whispers, "We were never ready for this." The bunker groans as if it agrees. When the guns fall silent for the briefest breath, the world feels wrong. Too quiet, too heavy. Adler steps outside the bunker, boots sinking into wet sand streaked with blood. The beach stretches before him, scattered with motionless shapes. One of them, an American, stirs, wounded but alive. Adler raises his pistol, then hesitates. The soldier's eyes meet his, wide, terrified human. No words, just recognition. Adler lowers the gun. Behind him, Otto yells for him to come back inside, but Adler doesn't move. He stands in the open rain, surrounded by smoke and ghosts, and feels the full weight of the lie collapsing. The scene no longer separates them. It binds them in silence. The wind carries one question that neither side can answer. What is victory, if everyone forgets why they bled for it? The sea burns. Waves slap against landing craft filled with men who no longer speak, only breathe in rhythm with fear. Captain James Miller grips the edge of the boat, water and blood mixing under his boots. Above, tracer rounds hiss like angry wasps. 30 seconds. A voice screams, but it sounds like eternity. CPL. ... Danny Ruiz checks his weapon, lips trembling as he whispers to no one. Just keep moving. The ramp slams down, and the world becomes noise. Fire, mud, and screaming. Men crash together. Miller stumbles forward, slipping on bodies, dragging Ruiz toward a low wall. Behind them, a shell explodes, the air itself turning solid. When Miller finally lifts his head, he realizes there's no plan. Only survival carved from chaos. The propaganda promised glory. The truth delivers silence between screams. Inside the German line, Otto Brandt shouts over the cannon thunder, his voice raw. The machine gun clatters without pause, belt after belt, disappearing into fire. Hans Keller feeds the ammo, tears cutting clean lines through dirt on his cheeks. They just keep coming, he cries. Otto doesn't answer. He's past words. Lieutenant Adler drags another soldier to cover, face half hidden behind grime. The earth shakes like it's alive. For a split second, Adler catches a glimpse of the enemy through smoke. A man crawling forward, bleeding but moving. Their eyes meet, and the hatred vanishes, replaced by something colder. Recognition. When the next blast tears the air apart, both vanish under dust and rain. Adler feels it in his bones. This isn't war anymore. It's judgment. By midday, the air is too thick to breathe. Captain Miller crawls behind a tank carcass, his ears ringing. Ruiz lies beside him, coughing, his hands shaking as he reloads. "We're not supposed to be alive," Ruiz mutters. Miller glances toward the horizon. Endless waves of soldiers still landing. Still running into hell. "We're not alive," he replies. "We're just not gone yet." He stands, waving others forward. A mortar lands close, tossing him into the sand. For a moment, the sound dies. Only the wind and the hiss of fire remain. He sees a German soldier through the haze, young, scared, his rifle lowered. Both men freeze, too exhausted to hate. The sea crashes behind them, washing away footprints faster than they can make them. Lieutenant Adler steps into daylight for the first time since dawn, boots sinking into the same sand he once commanded from above. The air is a storm of smoke and screams. A nearby explosion knocks him to his knees. When he rises, the world is unrecognizable. German defenses crushed, bunkers shattered, comrades gone. He stumbles toward a half-destroyed trench where Otto lies, blood seeping through his tunic. "We held as long as lies can hold," Otto whispers before his eyes close. Adler looks toward the beach, toward the advancing Americans, and feels the weight of everything he believed collapse in his chest. He doesn't feel defeat. He feels release. The war inside him ends before the one outside does. The rain stops. Not because the storm is over, but because there's nothing left to fall on. Captain Miller and a handful of men stand amid the ruins of the beachhead. The silence feels heavier than gunfire. Bodies, German and American, lie tangled together, their flags indistinguishable in the mud. Miller removes his helmet and stares toward the cliffs, where the bunker still smokes. "We did it," someone says, but Miller doesn't nod. He looks at the ocean, the same waves that brought them here, now carrying pieces of wreckage and memory. In the distance, he sees a lone German officer, Adler, standing still, unarmed. Neither man raises a weapon. The wind carries only breath and disbelief. D-Day is over, but its echo has just begun. The rain returns, colder this time, washing blood from the sand but not from the soul. Lieutenant Marcus Adler wanders through the ruins of his own defense line, helmet gone, face pale beneath streaks of dirt. Around him the cries of wounded men, German and American, blend into one voice, the sound of war, exhaling. He steps over twisted metal, past bodies that no longer belong to sides. The smell of burnt oil and seawater clings to everything. He finds Hans Keller, barely breathing, his uniform shredded. "They told us it would be glory," Hans whispers. Adler kneels, speechless. For the first time, the officer's voice breaks. "No one told us it would be this quiet." Thunder rolls again, distant but familiar. The sky weeps, the earth smokes, and somewhere inside that ruin, something like truth begins to grow. Captain James Miller moves inland through shattered defenses, every step heavy with the weight of survival. The rain turns the dirt to glue, pulling at boots, at memories. He passes a burned-out farmhouse, smoke curling through what used to be a window. Inside, an enemy radio still hums, broadcasting faint German music. Soft, almost beautiful. CPL. Danny Ruiz listens for a moment and mutters, "They play songs while the world dies." Miller doesn't answer. He picks up a rusted helmet from the ground. German, bullet hole through the crown, and stares at it. The music fades into static. He sets the helmet down carefully, like it belongs to someone he knew. "We didn't win," he says quietly. "We just lived longer. Outside, lightning flashes, and the war moves on without mercy." In a shallow crater near the cliffside, Adler hides from shellfire that no longer has meaning. The Allied artillery pounds inland, indifferent to who's left to hear it. He stares at the sky, gray, merciless, infinite. Steel rain, Otto used to call it. He almost smiles at the thought, though Otto lies buried beneath that very sky now. Around him, mud explodes in sharp bursts. He doesn't flinch. Instead, he watches how each explosion lights the fog for a heartbeat, then fades. Maybe this is what truth looks like. A flash that blinds before it reveals. He grips his dog tags, clenched between trembling hands, and whispers to the storm. Was belief worth this silence? No one answers, not even the thunder. The American advance slows, every step heavier with realization. Captain Miller looks back at the beach from a hilltop. The sea, once alive with fire, now eerily still. "No, we survived it." He kneels, running a hand over a fallen German's rifle, noting how similar it feels to his own. A photograph flutters nearby, a woman and a child smiling in sunlight. Miller picks it up, stares at it for a long time, then places it gently on the man's chest. "He believes something too," he murmurs. Ruiz watches, silent. The sky groans with distant thunder, but neither man moves. Victory feels smaller than it should, and infinitely heavier. By evening, the rain becomes mist, soft as breath. Lieutenant Adler limps through the smoking remains of the beach defenses, the last echoes of gunfire fading behind him. Ahead, Captain Miller and CPL Ruiz emerge from the haze. For a moment, time pauses. No flags, no commands, just men. Adler lowers his rifle. Miller doesn't raise his. They stand across a few yards of mud and memory. The distance between enemies erased by exhaustion. Ruiz watches, hand hovering near his weapon but unmoving. Then Adler nods once, a gesture not of surrender, but of understanding. Miller returns it. The war still rages around them, but here, for one brief instant, it ends. Dawn breaks like a bruise. Purple, gray, and quiet. Captain James Miller leads what remains of his unit inland. Boots sinking into mud, thick with smoke and memory. The fields stretch endlessly, dotted with wrecked machines that look more like tombstones than tanks. CPL. Danny Ruse hums under his breath, too softly to name the tune. "What are you doing?" Miller asks, his voice raw. "Trying to remember something good," Ruiz answers. They pass a crashed glider half swallowed by fog. The parachutes tangled like ghosts in trees. Somewhere distant, a single shot echoes, swallowed by wind. Miller grips his rifle but doesn't raise it. "No more enemies left," he mutters, though he doesn't sound convinced. Above them, the sky begins to clear, broken but honest. In a nearby village reduced to rubble, Lieutenant Marcus Adler limps through shattered streets. The air smells of burnt stone and wet wood. Bells hang silent in the church tower, cracked by shellfire. He stops beside a well where water runs red from the rain. From the ruins, a French child appears, dirt-streaked, barefoot, holding a small tin cup. Adler freezes, weapon lowered. The child says nothing, just stares. For a moment, they are two survivors of the same silence. He kneels, fills the cup, and hands it back. "For you," he whispers in a trembling voice, unsure if it's apology or prayer. When he looks up again, the child is gone. Only the wind answers, whispering through broken shutters like ghosts, remembering names. Rain returns as the Americans set up camp near the village outskirts. Fires flicker beneath makeshift tarps, their smoke rising into the heavy air. Captain Miller sits apart, cleaning his rifle with mechanical rhythm, not out of duty, just habit. Ruiz hands him a ration tin. "Think they'll ever stop?" he asks. Miller looks up. "The war? Yeah, a pause. Maybe, but not the noise it leaves behind." The wind moans through the broken church. A flare lights the sky for a moment, revealing the field of destruction. Men sleeping beside ruins, friends beside strangers. Ruiz lies back, staring at the stars barely visible through haze. "It's strange," he murmurs. "They said the sky would open for us." "Guess it did." Miller says nothing, only looks up at that same sky, cracked but endless. That night, Adler finds an abandoned barn on the edge of the same field. He lights a single candle, its flame trembling against the wind that leaks through bullet holes. He removes his medals one by one, placing them on the floor, like confessions. The silence feels like judgment. Outside, distant American voices drift closer, laughter, low and tired. He sits against the wall, holding his rifle across his knees, but the barrel points nowhere. Through the cracks, he sees shapes moving. Not enemies anymore, just men. He wonders what they'd say if they found him like this. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe that's mercy. Not forgiveness, just understanding. The candle burns lower, the wax pooling like tears. Morning arrives quietly, almost gently. The fog thins to reveal two figures on opposite sides of the same ruined field, Captain Miller and Lieutenant Adler. Neither speaks. The air holds a fragile peace, as if even the wind dares not disturb it. Miller lowers his weapon and nods once, not in victory, but acknowledgement. Adler mirrors it. Between them, the broken sky stretches wide and clear for the first time since the invasion. Ruiz steps forward cautiously, watching the silent exchange, realizing that in this single glance lies everything the war has failed to teach. That men can destroy nations, but never truly understand. The silence lasts longer than the battle ever did. Then, as if on cue, both turn away, walking into different horizons beneath the same fractured dawn. The beach, once roaring, now whispers. Captain James Miller walks the shoreline as the tide creeps in, waves lapping against helmets and spent shells. The smoke has thinned, revealing faces half buried in sand. Each one looks the same. American, German, young, CPL. Danny Ruiz trails behind him, his steps hesitant, his eyes red from more than rain. "We won," he says, almost to convince himself. Miller doesn't answer. He just kneels, picks up a dog tag that isn't his, turns it over in his palm, and lets it fall back into the sea. The ocean carries it away without ceremony. The wind blows faintly from the east, cold and clean. For the first time, Miller realizes that winning and surviving aren't the same thing. One you do for a flag, the other you do for your soul. Far inland, Lieutenant Marcus Adler sits alone among the wrecks of what was once a command post. The rain has stopped, leaving only the slow drip of water from broken beams. He has no orders, no men, just the heavy breath of quiet. From a torn satchel, he pulls a small photograph, his mother, smiling in a field untouched by war. The edges are burned, but the faces remain. He stares until it blurs, until the picture becomes the past itself. His rifle rests across his lap, but his hands never touch it. He whispers something, not a prayer, not regret, just a sound meant for the dead to hear. Somewhere beyond the fog, an engine hums, the world moving forward without him. For the first time, he doesn't follow. At a temporary field hospital near the beach, the wounded lie row after row beneath tarps. CPL. Ruiz walks between them, carrying supplies, his face hidden behind fatigue and compassion. Captain Miller helps lift a stretcher, his uniform stiff with salt and blood. Across the tent, he spots a German soldier clutching his stomach, barely breathing. The medic glances at Miller, waiting. Miller nods silently. "Save him." The medic obeys. Outside, thunder murmurs over the channel, like the war still whispering from afar. Ruiz exhales, watching Miller's face. "Does it ever end?" he asks. "No," Miller replies, eyes hollow but steady. "It just gets quieter." Night falls again, gentle but heavy. Adler lights a small fire in the ruins of a farmhouse, using pages from a propaganda leaflet as kindling. The flames rise, weak but steady. Each word burns, promises of triumph, purity, destiny, all turning to ash. He watches them curl and vanish, feeling neither shame nor anger, just release. In the firelight, he sees his reflection in a piece of metal, and for the first time he doesn't recognize the man staring back. The wind outside hums through bullet holes in the wall like a low hymn. "Truth," he murmurs, almost smiling, "was the only thing we never prepared for." He closes his eyes, listening to the sound of something ending quietly. The morning after, fog rolls across Normandy once more. Soft, forgiving. Captain Miller and CPL. Ruiz stand near the cliffs, watching the sun climb through a quiet sky. Below, ships move like slow ghosts on calm water. Miller takes a deep breath, shoulders sagging with everything he cannot forget. "You going home after this?" Ruiz asks. Miller smiles faintly. If home's still waiting, he looks down the beach, where a lone figure, Adler, walks toward the horizon, unarmed, fading into the mist. Miller watches until he disappears. He's going home too, he says softly. Ruiz nods. The waves crash once, steady and eternal. The war is over, but the echo, the one inside, never ends. Weeks have passed, but the air still tastes of smoke and salt. Captain James Miller stands among rows of wooden crosses rising from the sand. Each one bears a name, some American, some German, many unreadable. CPL doll. Danny Ruiz kneels nearby, tying a dog tag to one cross where the letters have faded. They all came here believing something, he murmurs. Miller nods, staring at the endless lines, and left believing nothing but the sky. The wind pushes at their uniforms, carrying the faint echo of the sea. For a moment, Miller closes his eyes and imagines the roar of battle, but it never returns. Only silence remains, heavy but clean, like the earth itself is holding its breath. Across the channel, in a hospital ward filled with soft light, Lieutenant Marcus Adler lies on a cot, bandaged shoulder propped against a pillow. The nurse changes his dressings without a word. Outside, gulls cry over a quiet harbor. On the nightstand beside him rests his iron cross, dull now, stripped of meaning. He turns it over in his fingers, tracing the edges like reading a forgotten language. "Keep it," the nurse says gently. "For remembrance." He shakes his head. For forgetting, he corrects. Through the window, he watches boats drifting toward an unseen shore. For the first time, the sound of water doesn't remind him of invasion, only of distance. Back in the field, Miller helps rebuild what the storm destroyed. He stands with villagers clearing debris. From a schoolhouse, his sleeves rolled up, hands raw but steady. Ruiz paints over the bullet holes on a cracked wall, each stroke erasing a scar the earth had memorized. Children watch from the doorway, barefoot, silent. One offers Ruiz a flower, yellow, stubborn against the gray world. He tucks it into his pocket and smiles faintly. "You think they'll remember this day?" he asks. Miller nods slowly. "They'll remember the silence after it." As he speaks, the church bell rings for the first time since the landing. It sounds uneven, but alive. Adler walks through a train station days later, the sound of wheels and voices filling the air. Civilians rush past, carrying what little life they've salvaged. No one salutes him anymore. His uniform now marks loss, not rank. He moves slowly, blending with the displaced, the forgotten. A vendor calls out, selling bread. He buys a loaf, handing over his last coin without counting. The woman thanks him, but he can't meet her eyes. He steps onto the platform, watching the train pull in, steam clouding everything white. For a moment he stands there, breathing in the smoke, neither leaving nor staying. A soldier caught between what was duty and what's left of being human. At dusk, the Normandy cliffs glow gold against the fading sky. Miller and Ruiz sit side by side, overlooking the calm water below. Between them lies silence, not heavy, but sacred. "You ever think about them?" Ruiz asks quietly. "Every day," Miller replies. "Not as enemies, as echoes." Ruiz nods, watching gulls drift across the horizon. "Maybe that's what truth sounds like," he says, "when there's nothing left to lie about." The wind moves gently through the grass, carrying the last scent of gunpowder out to sea. For the first time, the sky doesn't look broken. It just looks vast, wide enough to hold all the names that were spoken and all the ones that never were. The war is over, but silence still commands the earth. Captain James Miller walks through a field of rusted helmets and crushed canteens. The sun warm for the first time in months. CPL DDay. Danny Ruiz walks beside him, his steps slower now, his eyes softer. "Feels wrong, doesn't it?" he asks. "Peace?" Miller answers, glancing at the sky. "Yeah, It's too quiet, like the world forgot how to breathe. They stop near a crater now filled with clear rainwater. Miller crouches and looks down. His reflection wavers between clouds and scars. He dips his hand in, watching the ripples erase his face. "We leave so much behind," he whispers, "and still carry too much." In the quiet town square, Lieutenant Marcus Adler helps rebuild the same church whose bells once called soldiers to battle. His sleeves are rolled, his hands raw from lifting stone. Villagers move around him, silent but not cold. A boy hands him a hammer without hesitation. "Dank," Adler says softly, the word trembling with new meaning. When the final stone is placed, he steps back and looks at the repaired wall, still scarred, but standing. The bell above rings once, hesitant yet pure. Adler closes his eyes. It doesn't sound like victory. It sounds like forgiveness learning how to walk. That evening, Miller writes a letter he will never send. The candle burns low as he scratches words onto a damp page. "We came as strangers, left as ghosts," he writes, "but ghosts still dream." He pauses, staring at the flame, at how it bends with every draft. Ruiz sits outside the tent, strumming a broken guitar with 3 strings, humming softly. Miller listens. The melody, carrying through the night, fragile, unfinished, human. When he looks down again, the ink has smudged, blurring his last line. He smiles faintly and sets the page aside. Some truths don't need to be written. They just need to be remembered. On a train moving east, Adler watches the countryside roll past, green hills reclaiming the scars of war. Smoke drifts from the engine, dissolving into a sky that finally looks alive again. Across from him, a young mother hums to her sleeping child. He can't help but smile. When the child stirs, Adler gently drops a single silver button from his torn uniform into the boy's hand. The last piece of the soldier he used to be. The mother nods in quiet thanks. He leans back, closing his eyes. The rhythm of the rails sounds like rain on steel. Soft, steady, eternal. For the first time, he doesn't fear the sound. The war ends again every morning. Miller stands alone on the cliff, the sea breathing below, the horizon wide and wordless. Ruiz has gone home. So have the sounds. He stares into the wind, remembering the storm that started it all. The roar, the fire, the lies. Now, there is only the steady rhythm of waves and the quiet question that has haunted him since that first day. Who burns first? The man holding the fire, or the one it touches? The sky gives no answer, but the light softens as if it understands. Miller closes his eyes, lets the wind move through him, and finally exhales. The war is gone. The echo remains.